Thanks for joining us once again. With us, as always, is Greg Engert, beer director for the Neighborhood Restaurant Group, a food and wine sommelier of the year. The group includes Rustico, 2 locations in Alexandria and Ballston, Tallulah in Arlington. Greg, always good to see you.
You too.
What is on tap this week?
So this week, we have a very special draft treat from De Dolle, the De Dolle Brewers of Essen in West Flanders, Belgium. And this beer is called Arabier. It's one of a handful of beers that De Dolle makes, and it is probably their hoppiest, which is by no means saying that it's anything like the American IPAs that we see so much of here, but it definitely is a Belgian strong blonde ale of 8% with hop character. Nowadays, we're actually able to get this delicious stuff from De Dolle on draft, and I'll talk about that in a second. And as we've talked about before, freshness is everything when it comes to hops. And draft beer is, kegs are impervious to light and air. They don't heat up and cool down too quickly, so the oxidation doesn't happen too quickly. And so when you get a beer like this on draft, it really is spectacular. It shows the hop character in the nose a little bit. It's got a beautiful kind of leafy, earthy, dry finish, and still has some kind of honeyed sweetness from the malt up front and the traditional kind of Belgian bright fruit and spice from the fermentation of the Belgian ale yeast.
Well, some buildup. I think I'm in love already. It's beautiful color, too.
Yeah, it's great.
Yes.
You see how the hops come through in a totally different way? They're kind of like pinpoint focused. And great malt, kind of fresh bread. It's hoppy. It's dry.
Oh, that's dynamite. That is really refreshing.
And Belgian beer, as most people have come to know it, is in most of our imaginations, sweet and fruity, spicy, and that is still typically true. But that's not the way Belgian beer was for all time. And in fact, brewers like Chris Hertelier at De Dolle, the boys from De Rank, one of my good friends, Yvon de Batz, who has Brasserie de la Seine, one of the breweries that we, Blue Jacket, collaborated with. These guys are on a mission to bring balance back to Belgian beer, to utilize hops, not to make big hop monsters like we have in the United States, not even often to use our hop varietals, but to make the beer have a dryness to it, have flavor not just from malt and fermentation, but also from the hops themselves, and you're seeing it here. It's fantastic.
You mentioned a bit about the malt and fermentation, but what is the unbalance they don't? What is the taste that they feel the Belgian beer has gone too far to?
A lot of times, yeast, for instance, is something that is shared. If you brew with your own yeast in your own brewery, and you propagate your own yeast and grow your own yeast, it will evolve over time to have its own sort of house character. But a lot of Belgian beers that come over here today are fermented very similarly, with very similar yeast strains, very similar malt bases, very little hop character. And so they all tend to kind of taste one note, kind of sweet and fruity, and all very similar, actually. And when you bring in hops, now you have an interaction of flavor between the hop, the malt, and the fruit and spice that makes it much different. I would argue more complex, and the proof is here. This is fantastic. The other great thing is that Belgium, once upon a time had a very important hop industry. Nowadays, it's dwindled a bit. There's two kind of primary regions for hop growing: Ulst, which is in East Flanders, and Popering, which is in West Flanders. And naturally, this brewery is located closer to Popering. And so for this beer specifically, they incorporate local hops grown in Popering. And then because we can get it so fresh on tap, you're getting this real beautiful expression of those local hops. And one other thing I'll say about Popering that's really cool, if you go there, it's an area that is very, very, very serious and proud of their hop traditions. They have a beautiful hop museum. It's really fascinating to go and see. They have, when you're there too, you talk to the locals, that the hop tradition is so strong, or once was so strong, because even still today, children begin school, I think, in like mid-October, because in the old days, they were employed in helping with the hop harvest. So it's really cool to see that culture there.
Don't knock the hop.
Yeah.
Now, did I really take that big of a sip?
You spilled it.
No, I think it's his pouring job. You poured, but what's the ABV on this? Because I think I could really drink a few of those. But
it's 8%.
Okay,
yeah,
well,
so it's strong. Yeah. The other thing I'll say, you know, it's a really cool brewery. It's one that the buildings of the brewery were first established in 1835. And then they kind of slightly modernized, I think, in the 1880s, slightly. And then stayed exactly the same until the brewery closed in 1980. And at that time, they were making an Oud Bruin, they were making Coke Pills and Cosmos beer. And Chris, who's an artist by trade, and that's why he's responsible for all the beautiful artwork on the labels, took over the brewery. And he didn't change much of it at all. He had no intention of modernizing or making more and more beer. So now he's still brewing these beautiful, complex beers on an old school system that only makes about 900 to 1,000 barrels a year, which is roughly, you know, 1,800 to 2,000 full-size kegs. That's for the world. To put that in perspective, most brew pubs that are doing decent sales are going to sell between 1,200 and 1,800 barrels a year on premise. So very small. And once upon a time, you'd see these bottles over here of Dolle fleetingly, and that was it. But their importer, Be United, out of Redding, Connecticut, has this cool tank container program I've mentioned before. And what they do is they basically bring a tanker to the brewery. They fill a compartment of the tank, which is stainless steel, impervious to air and light, glycol wrap to maintain temperature. Drive that tanker, put it on a boat, bring it to Connecticut, where the facilities are, and then they actually keg the beer stateside.
Wow, fascinating.
So what this does, I mean, it's a huge amount of trust for the brewers in the importer, and they do a great job. But what this does, imagine this, is that you're almost freezing that beer in time from the brewery to Connecticut. So when we taste this now, it's like we're as far away from Essen as we are from Redding, Connecticut. I mean, that's how fresh this is. And it's also been beneficial for cask ale. They do the same with that. So if beers from Harvestoun or Thornbridge are coming over from England and Scotland in a tank container, they'll keg off some, but they'll also rack off some casks. And so when you taste the casks of Thornbridge beers now, it's like you're at the brewery.
Just keeps getting better.
It does, yeah.
What would you pair this with?
Well, this could be a little bit difficult just because the hop character is, you know, not super intense, but definitely there. I think this would go excellently with a preparation of, you could do something like poultry or pork with this if it had a kind of herbed preparation. I think that would be really good. And maybe some greens on the side. You know, it could be like green beans, asparagus, something to kind of eat up some of the bitterness here. But I love that kind of toasted honeyed malt and herbal quality in the nose. And I think that would lend itself to like, you know, I'm thinking about herb chicken that's been grilled. That has like that really great kind of intense skin to it. I think that'd be awesome.
Before we go, there's a new member of the Neighborhood Restaurant Group opening soon. Tell me a bit
indeed.
about it.
So for many years now, Nathan Anda, who was our chef at Tallulah, which you mentioned before, has been operating something called Red Apron, which is our group's butcher charcuterie sort of shop. And until very recently, it was operating out of Tallulah, and now we have a home base for it and locations coming all over the place. So the beautiful Union Market in Northeast DC is, we actually have a Red Apron stall in the market, which is awesome because it's a deli counter, so you can get beautiful cuts of steaks and things that Nathan ages in-house. You can get wonderful sandwiches that are just unbeatable. And then, of course, they let me jump in there and have 12 drafts on at all times, and really great craft beers in rotation, fantastic stuff. So that's great, and that's going strong right now at Union Market, so check that out. But very soon, we are opening a second location out in the Mosaic building, which is a really cool retail center in Merrifield, Virginia. And that is going to be slightly different. Still butcher shop, deli, sandwiches, all that great stuff. But instead of having draft beers there, it's actually going to be a bottle shop, which I'm really excited about. So we don't really have a huge beer bottle shop right now. Planet Wine in Del Rey is fantastic for beer, but this is going to be a focus list of just some of the best beers I can find to go.
Fantastic. Well, we'll look forward to visiting there sometime. Greg, thank you as always.
Thank you.
If you've got a question for Greg before I forget, here is the email, beeroftheweek@WTOP.com. Everyone, please always do drink responsibly, and be sure to bring your thirst next time for another Beer of the Week.